The first question I chose to do was explain and critically analyze the theory of utilitarianism. Your essay should include a discussion of the main points of the theory, including how to determine what is good and what action is right, explain at least two objections to utilitarianism, and explain at least two possible responses to those objections. Alright, so the main points of the theory are that if a action will cause more unhappiness than happiness, then it is deemed a good and moral thing to do. So let's just go back to the train situation. If a train is going down a track and is headed for 5 people, but there's a lever that can be turned to make it kill 1 person instead of 5 people, what would you do? Looking at it from utilitarianism moral theory, then the correct thing to do would be to turn the lever and make it kill 1 person instead of making it kill 5 people. And an objection that I could have to this is, how are we supposed to judge what is going to create more happiness? Simply because 5 lives will be lost instead of 1, but we're given no further information on these people. What if the 5 people are serial killers and the 1 person is a priest? Are we still supposed to save the 5 lives instead of the 1 at that point? And the main thing is how are we going to judge happiness and unhappiness? It's not something that we're able to do simply. There's just no way to measure happiness. Take, for example, um, that happiness to 1 is going to be different than happiness to a different person. If a group of, just take an example, if a group of serial killers got together and went and found somebody that nobody knew, that nobody would miss, and his death would bring no unhappiness except to obviously the person getting killed, and the serial killers killed him, they all found great happiness in his death. A group's happiness outweighs the unhappiness of 1 person. Does that simply make it moral? Does that make it right? And um, my response to this is no, it does not make it right. And a big flaw in the moral theory is that we need to take simply what is good and what is bad into consideration and not just unhappiness versus happiness. Um, Another thing we could discuss is, do we have a moral obligation to do something bad in order for the greater happiness to come out on top? If we were to look at the train situation again, we were posed with a, before the lever, we're on a bridge with a large person. Do we push him off the bridge in order to stop the train, or do we let the train, or do we do nothing and let the train go? What obligations do we have to stopping the train? Now, I know that a lot of people decided to not push the man off, but said that they would pull the lever to kill the 1 person. Um, I think that's just a emotional aspect of it, and I honestly don't think that people would push the man off the bridge. They would pull the lever. So the question basically is, what responsibility do we have to do something bad? All right. For the next question, using the theories discussed in class and a philosophical perspective on rights and obligations, discuss case study 1.6 from the Honest Work Chapter 1 Case Studies reading. Using at least two of the moral theories discussed in class, analyze the case study, be sure to pick out the main moral dilemma, identify the stakeholders, evaluate possible choices and outcomes, and come to a conclusion. Be sure to support your position with theories we have discussed so far. The two main moral dilemmas in case study 1.6, pornography on the boss's computer, would be, the first would be that Todd used his boss's computer without permission. I know from my experience that if somebody was to come and use my computer without my permission, they could alter shared filed documents under my name that people could see, and they could delete them or just change them, and that would be under my name. And my computer has access to time cards, so if they were to use my computer, they could also alter people's time cards under my name. And that's why that we are not allowed to go on other people's computers. And obviously the main moral dilemma would be that Todd found sadistic pornography on Carlton's computer. And not only is watching that at work a morally wrong thing to do, it also goes against the company's code of ethics that everyone has to sign. Even the interns have to sign. And this basically states that you will not use computers for personal use, and you will report any wrongdoing that you see. And the stakeholders for this, obviously, would be Carlton and Todd. Carlton and Todd have the most to gain and lose from what is going to come out of this. Todd is a stakeholder because he has to face the decision to either get his boss and mentor fired or stick to the company's code of ethics and report him. And Carlton's a stakeholder because he could possibly lose his job for this. Now let's try to figure out what we should do using the moral theories we have discussed in class. If we look at it from a utilitarianism point of view, or we weigh happiness to unhappiness, if Todd reports Carlton to HR, HR would be unhappy to hear this news, as they would probably have to fire him. Carlton would be unhappy because everybody would see what he does in his free time, and that's not a good thing to be sharing around. And he would also lose his job, obviously make anybody unhappy. And from what I think, Todd would also be unhappy because he would be seen as a snitch, and he would be seen, or he would lose his boss and mentor, who was given an opportunity, an intern, to be a big boss's assistant. So using that moral theory, Todd should not report Carlton. Now, if we were to use Kant's moral theory, he would turn him in. This theory states that if you have a obligation to do something, morality should not be a factor. Todd signed the code of conduct. He knows Carlton should not be doing that at work. He knows that Carlton knows he should not be doing that at work. It is his obligation to go and turn Carlton in to HR or whoever he would turn him into, to basically do his duty. And we're going to use a third one. If we were to use moral pluralism, and this moral theory basically, to me, means that you're going to come in as a unbiased third party, look at both sides, both decisions, and respect them, and basically do a scale and see like what's going to do the most good and what's going to do the most bad. And personally, I think that Todd not reporting Carlton is going to be the best decision because Carlton, although he definitely should not be doing that at work, um, did that action that he did hurt anybody? No. And maybe Todd goes and has a talk with him and says, hey, you shouldn't be doing that, whatever. But if I was to weigh these two things against each other, then I think that Todd should not report Carlton. Todd has so much to lose. Carlton has so much to lose. And if he just doesn't do anything, then, nothing's going to happen. And he can continue his dream of being Carlton's assistant. Yeah, and I think that wraps that question up nicely. That's all I got. Thank you.